Apex Legends has been out for some time now, and Respawn is no stranger to making some questionable balancing decisions, from Legends being released way too weak to them getting buffed and completely destroying the meta. I decided to dive deep and find the 10 most broken and overpowered guns in Apex history. Starting off with number 10, we have the Wingman, which actually has drummed up a bit of calls for nerfs lately. But if you think the current Wingman is bad, just wait until you see how broken the Wingman was for the first month after the game came out in 2019. The gun was basically the same as now, except it had up to 12 bullets in the purple magazine, dealt 2.5 times the damage with a headshot when using a skull piercer, had a pretty forgiving hipfire, and of course let's not forget just how fast it would fire. With streamers mainly running the Wingman, the community quickly caught on with just how overpowered it was, and were pushing for nerfs for quite some time, and Wingman actually continued getting nerfed through several patches, with the first non-nerf patch coming as late as November 2020, 1.5 years after the game's initial release. Did you remember the Wingman from back then? Make sure to smash that like button. Actually, you can just wait until the end of the video and I'm gonna make sure to earn the like. So on to number 9 is another weapon that was really strong on release, and it's still strong, but needed a lot of tweaking back then when the game was initially released. We're talking about the longbow, which at the time didn't run sniper ammo. Actually, sniper ammo didn't exist. Instead, it was running heavy ammo and took sniper attachments, and fired a hell of a lot faster than the longbow that we see today. It also took the skull piercer, meaning that with some luck, if you'd find this legendary attachment, your headshots would do upwards of 110 damage. This, combined with the fast fire rate and large magazine size of the longbow, made it the most oppressive and the strongest sniper at the time. Some people will argue with me about this and say no, the triple take was actually better. No, it was the longbow. Trust me on this. The kraber is yet another controversial gun that actually saw a slight rework lately, with Respawn nerfing the one-hit kill sniper and making it take most of one's health away with a headshot, as long as they have a purple armor and a blue helmet or above. It has had the one-shot kill potential for most of the game's lifetime, but actually kept getting buffed in the first 3 years of the game, reaching its peak around the April 7th patch in 2020, where its headshot multiplier was raised from 2.05 times to 3 times to guarantee that a headshot always was a kill, even against characters with the new fortified passive. Before that, Respawn had already buffed its projectile width to make it easier and more forgiving to hit shots. On number 7, we have the R99. It has been gradually getting nerfed ever since the game came out, as well as getting some real competitors in the meta who either do similar damage but are easier to use, or have other gimmicks that make them more valuable to use. For example, we have the car SMG that can use both light and heavy ammo, as well as light and heavy attachments. But the release R99 was an absolute monster, oftentimes coupled with a wingman to cover all ranges. It did 12 damage per shot, had up to 30 bullets per magazine, a super easy to control recoil pattern, and could even be equipped with a 3x ranger or 2 to 4 times variable ACOG. At this point in the game, there wasn't really any reason to run the R301, and funnily enough, we're currently in the opposite situation. Number 6 is the Mozambique. Actually, not the release version of the Mozambique, which was memed by the community and even the developers themselves, which for a limited time had a custom animation where the character would angrily throw the Mozambique away when you dropped it for another weapon. And we're not talking about the current version with the return of the Hammerpoints. Instead, we're talking about the Season 2 Hammerpoint Mozambique, when Hammerpoints were introduced for the first time. Specifically, it would one-shot a lot of enemies. Even better, an enemy who was basically cracked with, say, 110 overall health remaining would also get one shot. The Mozambique has an incredibly high range, even back then, but especially after Respawn buffed it again in Season 3 with a tighter spread and a faster recoil reset. I personally can't use the Mozambique with hammer points anymore. The 45 damage just doesn't hit the same, and I can't help but think back of the times where it would just straight up delete someone from the game once you crack their shields. It's just not the same. On the subject of shotguns, and yeah, there are a few shotguns in this list, we're going to be looking at number 5, which is the Mastiff. Yeah, it's currently an incredibly overpowered mess with a much more forgiving spread that fires super fast, deals up to 112 damage per shot, and reloads 2 bullets at a time, but this still isn't the Mastiff in its most broken state. I didn't know it was this broken for this long, but from release to the start of Season 5, the Mastiff was a beast to be reckoned with. Just like the Kraber, it was a legendary weapon that you find in care packages that had a one-shot kill potential. That's right. The gun had a 2 times damage multiplier per headshot, dealt 18 damage per pellet, and since it fires 8 pellets at once, could deal up to 288 damage for a headshot, and sending someone back to the lobby with no chance of fighting back. Even if you didn't get close enough to hit a headshot. The Mastiff did an insane amount of damage, and just like today, you're expected to win any team fight that you take if you get this absolutely broken weapon in your hands. Next up is actually the return of the Mozambique, but this time we're not talking about the Hammerpoints version, not the old or the new. Instead, we're taking a look at the golden Mozambique featured in the April's Fools event. Now, I'm not talking about the most recent one, where Respawn chose to go for the Mozambique spawning tiny, cute, Nessie plushy NPCs that help you out, make cute noises, and attack enemies. But back in 2020, the April's Fools Mozambique was a beast, kitted with a 9-bullet magazine, doing upwards of 60 damage per shot, and firing at an insane speed of 240 rounds per minute, the exact same fire rate as a G7 Scout. I never really picked it up back then, as I was just in love with the 100 damage pump Hammerpoint Mozambique, and it just felt like I was cheating on my true love. But I'm hoping that we'll see this version of the beak in a future April Fool's patch. The charge rifle is annoying to deal with, but is far from its peak version, which is number 3 on this list. The most broken version of the charge rifle was upon release back in Season 3. This hitscan sniper rifle initially ran on energy ammo, and unlike now consumed 1 ammo per shot. To make matters worse, it could be equipped with an extended energy magazine, meaning that you basically never would need to reload, since a purple extended magazine would field up to 7 shots in the magazine at one time. And you definitely didn't have to reload if you found a golden one. This version of the charge rifle had no damage fall off from 300 meters away, with the fall off hitting a cap at 500 meters, meaning that the damage couldn't get any lower, compared to the current version, which is damage fall off begins at 150 meters and hits the maximum range at 400 meters. It's hard to envision, but basically it had twice the range, and you almost never felt the damage fall off because no targets were really that far away. And was especially bad because this is the season when we got World's Edge, so we got a map that's more viable for sniper rifles than King's Canyon, for a weapon that has an insanely long range with hit scan, and I almost forgot, this charge rifle also fired 15% faster. Now you'd think topping the charge rifle would be hard, but let's take a look at the original Disruptor round alternator. The Disruptors, much like the Hammerpoints, did make a return to Apex recently, but they packed way less of a punch than their initial counterpart. So the original Disruptor rounds made an entry into Apex in Season 2. Everyone remembers the Disruptors being strong, but many forget this 3-day window where alternators with Disruptors made 2.26 times as much damage against a shielded target, breaking armors in at worst 3 shots, because every single bullet did about 34 damage on a body shot. This was during a time where the alternator would be equipped with marksman scopes such as the 3x Ranger or the 2 to 4 times, so the poke potential was absolutely insane. After a hotfix, the Disruptor's damage buff was reduced to 1.77 times the damage, and its time to kill could be matched to other guns in the game if you factor in flesh damage. But many forget that breaking a shield is the most important part of a duel, since enemies with broken armor will get aim punched and flinch, which throws their aim all over the place when hit and guarantees that the Disruptor user will get the kill. If you get cracked, odds are you have to go back and hit a battery, which means you're going to lose a lot of space and overall the team fight. And before we move on to number 1, let me remind you guys to hit the subscribe button. I upload all types of Apex content on the daily, and at the moment only 16.7% of everyone watching are subscribed, so make sure to join the Ottr gang on this road to 500,000 subs. I'd like to personally thank everyone who has been subscribing ever since I asked you to, and of course if you subscribe watching this video, thank you as well. And finally, the most broken gun in Apex Legends history will have to be the Spitfire. It's annoying to deal with now, sure, and pretty cheesy to boot, but if we look back to the first few months of the game, this same gun could hold up to 60 bullets per magazine. It was super easy to control and did 20 damage per bullet. That means that a full Spitfire magazine could deal up to 1,200 damage if you weren't taken down in time. It also had a lot more forgiving of a hipfire spread, meaning that just like now, it was viable to strafe and dodge around while hipfiring to win your duels, except it was a lot better since you'd be hitting a lot more shots. An unchecked Spitfire user on a flank could easily destroy 2 teams in 1 magazine without really breaking much of a sweat or, well, reloading. Speaking of game breaking, do you know about all of the 10 funniest bugs in Apex history? Check out the video on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.